What's going on? What's going on? Here we are. We're back live. This is the Locked In Podcast. This is your truly yours, your host here, G Money, one half of the podcast, also aka known as George or G Mac, and we are back with another episode of the Locked In Podcast. Like I said before, 148, and today we have a special type of a little different type of topic. Today's gonna be a very interesting topic, and it's actually all about podcasting. It's actually all about kind of like the evolution and the steps and how podcasting has grown, especially in the last like 3.5, 4 years. But generally speaking, in the last like 5 years, 5.5 years, podcasting has become a big time phenomenon. So we're gonna be talking about that. In the meantime, I'm just waiting on Steve, as he said, he's some small technical issues. But otherwise than that, everything is good to go. So, yep, here we go now again. Oh, geez. So, today we may or may not do the intro. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, I'm even lucky to be here right now live, but it's good to be back. Back on the mic, back on the live stream, and on the platforms, and you know, grateful to be here and have the guys and the girls you're watching, have all our audiences, and to bring you guys a good sort of like a good episode, another good perspective on this topic. So let's just kind of get right into it. We'll wait for Steve. Like I said, he may or may not pop up yet. I'm more than likely gonna go for a while, and then I gotta take it down early tonight. A long day. So, podcast. Now we all know what podcasts are, right? We all watch podcasts, we all listen to them, and we all have been a part of some kind of podcast, like some kind of like maybe like a group or some kind of like live stream. Like we'll probably watch some of it. But podcasting is like a new sort of like a way of blogging, if you will. It's a new method of televising something and streaming. Podcast wasn't always a streaming service. You can see the person's like the actual video on the face. It's just mostly an audio one point, and it was first started in 2004, but not many people were doing that like as of '04. It was actually a little later that it developed, and it sort of like got its name and not the name, but sort of like its fame, so to speak. The way that podcasting kind of evolved. You could do it with a small and a device like you could do it on a computer, but you needed a computer to connect the mic and to connect it to like a set of software to actually listen to it, and then later on users could download it. Since then, he's changed a little bit. Well, needless to say, he's changed a lot, but we'll get in that as well. So, one second now. As always, shout out my folks and all of my teams. Team Strong, New World MMA, Grapple Nation, CrossFit Jiu-Jitsu, Team G Money. That's it. Also, the Locked In Podcast, like the crew, the show, After Hours group, the boat crew, they know who they are, and everybody else with that. I'll be surprised. Some of these chargers here actually do very well. They actually charge very fast. So we are. In the meantime, I wait for Steve. I'm gonna do a few things. And again, folks, this is somewhat of a research show, like I stated, but we'll talk about a little bit like the evolution and how much more podcasts have grown, and also who's been coming in, as well as like all the different things that is going on with podcasts, like the growth, the audiences, what they talk about, and what it really takes to start a podcast. We could talk about that as well, since we have experience in that particular field and everything else with that. I might also do some stuff like read some of the notes that I have and some emails, possibly some texts. I just got a text right now. Hang on a second. All right. I'm in Sean hit me up. What up, G? All right, so basically around 2005, that's when like the medium that's podcasting hit the scene, and since then, a lot of people started, sort of like using this and getting involved in this kind of like browsing, in this kind of like streaming. So I took 4.9 were released a little over a decade ago. Again, around 2014, just over, maybe a little before that, maybe 2000 and 2014 is when podcasting got a little more known on the scene. 2011 is when it started to really pop off like that. So The ability, we give you the ability for users to listen to a podcast and then download it, and then basically, they would actually download the podcast on their device. And in a few years, he's just kind of going crazy, skyrocketed, it got big, and it grew a lot. It grew a lot, just into the billions, even listeners and all that. Obviously, that's where everything else got big, and a lot of the changes also have been the platforms as far as the streaming platforms that have been doing it. Everything from Spotify to Anchor. Anchors were the first ones. I remember seeing Anchor back in I think like 2014, 2015. If I'm not mistaken, I watched a podcast on. I'm sorry, I didn't watch it. I rephrase that. I actually listened to a podcast. I listened to a podcast on Anchor, and it was around 2011. No, I'm sorry, 2016. But I was involved in a small podcast in 2011 for a project, so for school. So yeah, podcasting is just a form of like digital media and is a nice medium. But now it's becoming a vlog, which is a little different. Though we're not gonna mix up the two. We'll get to that as well, and we'll talk about vlogs. But it's kind of similar to like a vlog in a way. And yeah, podcasting is very popular on the scene, and nowadays everybody, including celebrities, got podcasts. Big time people, big names, but even small regular civilians that just want to do a podcast, that get together like a group of friends that are into the blogging thing, and that's just what it's about these days. It's about having a channel, a YouTube channel. See, YouTube channels help because in conjunction with a podcast, you do on YouTube as like we're doing it right now, for example, or somebody else out there, the big ones. Everybody from Nori's podcast to $1 Million Worth of Game, Gilly, shout out to Gilly and those guys. They all do, some kind of podcast, and they bring the streets to the screen, and it's all online now. The internet's taking over. So,
wow, bro.
That's part of the process.
What's going on, bro?
Everybody watches the internet over watching TV. People still watch TV, but I mean, the internet's big. YouTube and everything else. I think Stevie's on right now.
Yo, what's up, bro? Can you hear me,
there
man?
You are. I can hear you.
All right, cool. Yeah, dude. Oh my God, dude. What a mess.
Tough time. Yeah, I was just talking a little bit.
What a mess, man. But I'm glad to be here, dude. I'm glad we got that figured out, man. How long have you been live?
I've been live for 8 minutes, bro. I was just talking about how people, before you actually jumped in, how people watch TV. I mean, they still watch TV, but they watch podcasts more these days. They watch the internet. The radio's still a big deal, but I was getting right into that, bro. But people are watching TV, but they're watching online, the internet and their phone, which is virtually the internet. The internet's on a computer, on a phone, or some other device. And podcast is part of the internet, so people are watching. They watch the internet and how podcasts are on YouTube now, including us. And I said people like Gillies and Nori's podcast, of course Joe Rogan, and the one guy, I forgot his name, the Iranian guy, the really educated intellectual guy. He does a cool podcast, as well as Lex Friedman. They're all on YouTube, and YouTube is the home for podcasts, basically. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it is, man. I was gonna say, bro, podcasts. It's amazing, bro. They only started 19 years ago, bro. They only started in 2004. They were invented.
Yeah, I just mentioned that as well. I just mentioned like around 04 or 05, it was like really, they're like in their infancy, 05, they started in 04. Some bloggers were doing it, and it was like kind of like a new invention that people weren't really, it was kind of a cool thing, but people didn't know about it at all. Like, it's almost like Google. Back in 02, 03, people didn't know much about Google. It was just starting out, but it had been around since 98. It just depends.
Exactly.
Some things, TikTok has been around since 2016. 2020 is when it blew up. When people blew up means that like people started really using it. Like billions of streamers started using podcasts and watching podcasts.
Yeah, they took over essentially. Yeah, podcasting became a beautiful thing, man, because you can essentially find a podcast on almost any topic in the world today, bro. Almost anything, bro. There's even podcasts. There's podcasts on anything from informative stuff like the personal development, like sports, bro, and even, bro, they're like political, like reading, like there's like different food podcasts, bro.
There's so many things, right?
There's even podcasts on sex, bro. Like it's crazy, bro. Like taboo, like podcast, bro. Like it's a real thing.
Hey, shout out to our boy Mike. Mike Lassard. 2 chicks and a schmuck. He's the schmuck. Remember, he's the cool schmuck.
Yeah,
and to talk about content issue, the sex industry, the strip club industry, the whole, selling sex industry. It's a whole, whole business. I mean, $1 billion business at that. So I mean, podcasts could be about anything, including sex, or including like possibly sex education. Experiences. It could be about, like city life. It could be about how to run a business, how to create a business, and so forth and so forth. I mean, a lot of things, so. But it's growing because I was saying that everything, like I said this before you got on, right? I watched a podcast on Anchor in like 2016, and I heard something around 2014. And in 2011, I was part of a small like little podcast, but it was really small at the time. I know about podcasts since '09, but podcasts have been around way longer than that, like 2004. In '05, people were, like those that had like big the computers, a certain Apple has a software that came out later, and that's what was going on, bro. Like 4.9 billion people subscribed. And
Yeah,
people can
yeah,
actually
man.
download the audio. 'Cause remember, it was also audio first. It wasn't really, you know.
Yeah. I was gonna put like a little logo in the background there. Nah, but you're absolutely right, man. Podcasting actually was kind of started actually with the surgence of the iPod. So people actually started to podcasting kind of picked up when that was released. I think in the early 2000s. That's like when podcasts kind of started. And you look at what they are today. It's not even close to similar. It has podcast really took off. They said in about 2014 is when they
Yeah,
really started to surge, and then I think with COVID, which is actually how we got started, right? Um, they really a lot of people started doing podcasts, started
yeah.
during COVID because of that. But they really started taking
Out of
off in
boredom.
2014.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, Steve. Explanation. Very good point there. So podcasting, like I said before, Steve just got there again. 2014 is when it kind of like started taking off, getting bigger. A little before that, between 2010 and 2014, that they were out and somewhat popular, but very few. I mean, and good evidence is the Joe Rogan podcast. By 2014, it was pretty big. In 2013, even, but in 2009, he first started, and it was like a project they're doing. You know, man, they had the following and everything, and they all worked, and the rest is history. We can do a whole podcast on the Joe Rogan podcast, and we can do a whole podcast, the whole episode on our, how we started. But we can save it for another one. But I did mention to the viewers when I did the the background music at the beginning, like when I first started, the intro, that it was basically like that's how it starts, like it was like a small experiment, and then we'll
And it's
talk about our start as well. And we've been around for a little over 3 years, but some people are doing it for like 19 years. So yeah, mid 2000s when we started, bro, and it's amazing. It's like a avenue for communication. Also, it's called. Hold on one second. I got it right here. I got a note on this. Give me one
Yeah,
second.
no problem. I was gonna say it's like a network, man.
It was
It's a
yeah,
way
it
of
was the breakthrough was the real. It's called the real simple syndication (RSS). That podcast became possible. So basically, it was a concept of shutting away a host with a recording microphone, and it was more text. It was actually audio files were kept and able through the software. And then basically you can first manage to adjust the feed, include the files, and the achievement they actually allowed listeners to subscribe. After that, you can actually subscribe eventually. So now you have listeners. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
that's
it was an
incredible.
audio blog. So it started virtually from a small audio blog to, as far as the camera, I don't know. Maybe because I don't know. I was able to find nothing, but it started later. The camera concept. First was what you could hear, but I think like even as early as '09, like when Jorgen started his podcast, I believe there were camera. You can actually have footage, camera footage, as opposed to just audio.
Yeah,
But to this day, a lot of people like audio. Just do audio and that's it.
Joe Rogan was one of the pioneers for it, man. When it came to
Of course,
when it came to the video side of it, especially. But obviously,
especially
he
yeah,
started very early, even before that. But yeah, no, I would say he's probably one of the pioneers when it started going video wise. Because yeah, podcasts, honestly, in the early days were just very comparative to talk radio shows. Like I know you listen to
yeah,
Star and like them, like it's very much was similar to talk radio shows. From the audio side of it. And now, if you even look, bro, the Breakfast Club and a lot of them shows, bro, they're all what was I gonna say, visual. Like you can still listen to them like
yeah,
the radio show, but they actually have them on television now. And now you're also starting to see sports talk. I know 97.5 The Fanatic in the afternoons has and you can find on YouTube too. They stream the
yeah. Sports
video of
talk
the
they
guys in the
did.
studio talking. So podcasting has really, and that's honestly considered a podcast. A lot of broadcasters in sports, bro, this is a real thing. They're leaving the realm of sports radio to actually start podcasts because there is a hell of a lot of money in podcasting these days, bro. And even though it's really taken off, bro, the market, even though as many podcasts as there are, there's still a lot of potential to be tapped out there. So this is a big thing. Like you're seeing like sports players all have podcasts. Looking for the Eagles, bro. Darius Slay, Jason Kelsey, and his brother Travis. They have the New Heights podcast. I know Micah Parsons has a podcast for the Dallas Cowboys. There's a lot of guys out here talking sports.
Everybody got a podcast,
There's a
bro.
lot of women.
Eventually,
There's a lot of women that have podcasts.
yeah.
But,
Because you know
but
what
yeah,
it is?
man.
The empowerment, bro. Everything is like you said. These days become a voice, so everybody's doing the podcast. So it's not like nothing really new now, but it's about who can kind of have like a cool guest who could have a great ratings about the shows. Yeah, you're right. Everything you said is true and correct, but he's evolved so much that it's like it's become its own phenomenon now. And honestly, the talk shows were the predecessor and the precursors to podcasts, like you said, like Star and those guys. But you have to realize, even Star, he's another pioneer. Even though he's not only a podcaster, something very similar, a video personality, and actually a legend because in 2011 he's inducted in the Hall of Rock Hall of Fame as far as the black DJs and disc jocks. But Star does a talk show. However, those shows were the first ones to bring some like a guest in there or do a show from your computer or from your system, and then you go live, and then might go live, and then people watch you on YouTube or whatever. Which is again, it's more of a YouTube show or then a talk show, which is people coming in the show, like like even like the Breakfast Club, like interviews, and then you have podcasts where people. It's more of a conversation and a little bit of an interview, and then you have DJ Vlad, or Vlad, Vlad TV. He's a blogger, Vlad the Detective Vlad, huh?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible how far it's come, man. It really is, and you just hear from people. You hear from people. Yeah, people talk about listening to podcasts while they're driving, on a long trip, while they're in the gym. And then my cousin, even the other night, she creates these big Halloween type houses. Shout out to my cousin Jenna Prisco. She builds these things, but she said a lot of nights she'd be working about 6-7 hours working on her Halloween setup for Halloween day, and she'd be listening to podcasts as she was doing it. So it really has come a long way. I absolutely love it. I love having the platform to literally be able to kind of talk about whatever. It's actually really great. You meet a lot of people on this journey as well. But the evolution of it is absolutely incredible.
Amazing, bro.
Of where we've come just short of 2 decades. Just short of 2 decades. It started in 2004. It was when the first podcasting was invented, and essentially talk radio was probably the predecessor to that. You know what I mean? And we still have it, but podcasts are becoming more and more popular. And like I said, a lot of athletes and a lot of people in Hollywood and stuff, they're starting to realize that podcasts are super popular. You can make a hell of a lot of money in podcasting. And I actually wanted to shift to that, bro, before you have to be out of here shortly. So how do podcasts make money? One of the biggest ways is they say to get started before you can be kind of monetized on YouTube and things like that. You can work with advertisements, sponsorships are the easiest way usually to monetize your content. And that's why you'll hear a lot of ads at the beginning, in the middle, or during section breaks of a podcast. Realistically, that's always a sponsorship, and it's a paid sponsorship 9 times out of 10. People can also go to other platforms like Twitch, YouTube. You can use a Patreon account where people have recurring monthly subscriptions or annual subscriptions for individual premium episodes as well. There's a lot of different ways. You also say you're a professional, right? Say George, say you run a you run a MMA training, right? Like you're a trainer and you make money off it. You can promote your services through your podcast, which is actually a beautiful thing. When you think about it, you look at a lot of these athletes, they're promoting their brand right through the podcast. I'm saying the Kelsey brothers with New Heights, doing a lot of great things out there. You know what I mean? So, George, say you're an MMA trainer, man. You can promote your services right through this podcast, which is great. Guys, also check some of my stuff out. Speaking of that, in the description of this video, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Facebook, because I actually drop stuff to my financial information. I work. I work with as a financial literacy consultant, helping people with their finances on the side. So I have my doc card information down below, guys. Check that out if you are interested in any services that I can help you with.
Yep.
But George, that's a great way. Say you're training people in MMA or something. Always promote it through the podcast, man. It's a great way to promote yourself, and you can make money that way.
That is very true.
You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing.
Actually, Steve, speaking of that, some MMA gyms and associations that got like members and committees and other connected to other organizations and gyms, or again like these academies and schools. They have like the buildings. You have a school. The school's part of another chain of schools, or possibly allied schools in different again gyms, like you just said, possibly more than one location. They got fighters, they got gear, they got a store, and what they do, they got to deal with like a radio station, somebody that talks to them for that, and a podcast. So people are already doing that, like the podcast. Like for example, is a Primal MMA, a gym that I'm affiliated with that I go to. They do that. USA Boxing Associated, connected to the cops and the firefighters, the Department of Security as well, because they train some fighters and cops, and they also train them for their job for technical stuff. And the guy that runs the gym, his name is Jim McCann, Mr. McCann. He's a great guy. He's a straight up when it comes to the bro. Like he knows his stuff, man. He's really good. Guy's a straight up killer, man. He's amazing. And his specialty is out of all
What's
the
that?
sports and stuff is there, bro. Submission fighting, jiu-jitsu, boxing, MMA, judo,
I love it.
karate, kickboxing, all that. Judo, yeah, all that, yeah. No, but his main style is hand-to-hand street fighting defense. That's what
Wow.
it's called.
Okay.
It's called hand-to-hand street fighting defense, bro. Basically, for combative stuff, for life or death situation, for one-on-ones, for multiple attackers, it's just basically how to fuck people up in simplest layman's terms. How to really all that break, shiver, destroy, strikes, throws, breaks, paralyzations, breaking of fingers, elbows, arms. If somebody has like a knife or a shank or a pen, or whatever, like a gun, So yeah, he does all that stuff, and they have a show. They bring a lot of nutritionists, specialists in health, specialists in other stuff. MMA
That's
guys,
cool.
fighters, fitness
that's
gurus,
awesome,
and
man.
lifters, even power lifters. They talk there sometimes. But I think their podcast is more geared towards their kind of stuff. I mean, maybe some like cool stuff in life, not so much. I mean, a little development because he falls in there. I don't know if he's other stuff too, but I'm sure they bring stuff like a finance guy every now and then, doctors. Because when I went to the gym one time, he had a little spot like on the wall there, a little thing that holds the card, like a little thing with clippers that holds cards. It's like a little thing, like a little like one of these, like kind of like
Yeah.
right here. But he has it's on a wall. It's over cards. It's like glass or whatever. Or you can also do
I love
a
it, man.
lamp. So
You can.
I looked at it and he had like chiropractor cards and doctors. So I was like, okay, like
That's cool,
yeah,
man.
they're like a big gym. They know how to commercialize their gym. They know also how to spread their
Yeah, man.
the name, the marketing.
You might as well have a podcast platform in 2023. I would say, if you run these types of things. Not everybody's a camera person. Not everybody, wants to be on the mic, but it's a great way to promote your stuff. And I love that, man. Everybody has a speciality, so they're more hand-to-hand type stuff, which is great. Joel actually has a buddy named Evan. I think you know him. Up at his gym up in Doylestown, right? Like his buddy Evan. And they have they have a podcast as well. So you can learn a lot from fighters. Guys, always remember that it's very important to be able to defend yourself in life. So, George, he does mixed martial arts, and I respect that.
Fighting,
what I mean?
wrestling, boxing.
Understanding how to protect yourself as a man is very important. So, Evan has a podcast too. It's called the Fight for Tomorrow podcast. And they talk a lot about the fighting stuff and the gym stuff, but they also talk about life, gratitude, different things.
I know that one, bro.
Yep. Looking sharp, by the way, man. I know you're about to go to work.
I gotta go to work in a second, bro. But stay with me 1 second. Hold that thought for a second.
No problem,
right
man.
there.
No problem. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways you can make money, guys. A lot of different options. Like I said, you can promote your services. You can essentially have advertisers advertise towards you. The good thing is, one of the great things is we are 3 years into this podcast thing, but we have really got to know a lot of business owners through this podcast. And the great thing is, people have reached out about kind of setting up promotions down the line, which is great. It's a great way for us to kind of build a mutually beneficial relationship. And that's one of the great things is if you stay consistent with your podcast long enough, is you can really get to that level where you can build a mutually beneficial relationship, but you can also be doing something great for the community. Being able to help other people promote their businesses, and you get kickbacks from it too, which is great. And then it's icing on the cake if you get to a point where you gain enough subscribers and watch time through YouTube and other platforms where you can monetize your content there. Personally, me and George, we love podcasting. We love doing it. It is a passion of ours. But obviously, money comes along with it. It's important to be able to, get compensated for your time too. It does take time to do it at the beginning. But you got to have a passion for it too, I would say. Don't just be all focused on the money, because if you are, it might take a while for that money to come in. It's definitely taking a while for us.
Focus on the money.
It's definitely taking a while for us, man, to, get this money to come in. But, at the end of the day, bro, we're doing something that we really love doing. We have a platform here. And,
voice. Sure.
If you got a business card, you can always have this on there, bro. Like, you always can just like show people your podcast. I know I have this thing called a DOT, a dot card, and I literally can promote the podcast right through it. It's a fantastic thing to be able to do it. Nowadays, like we said, bro, people are viewing podcasts as well as listening to them, and not everybody likes to watch a podcast, bro. So they might not want to see, our ugly faces up on the screen, man. You know what I mean? So it's like, but that's all right, man. You know what I mean? That's why we have other platforms where you can listen, like Spotify, like Anchor. We have platforms where
people sometimes don't want to see it. They want to see just kind of hear it. They don't care to like see, because the eyes go there. If they hear it, it's just easier for them. Like without. Because if you're going to see the podcast and you're driving, you're going to look, you're going to possibly crash your car.
Video's not as convenient. It's not as convenient to listen to watch videos. You know what I mean?
But hearing though, you can kind of walk around and listen, because you're not going to be able to watch videos. But listening, it's like you listen to music. You're moving around if you're in the house. You're not necessarily viewing like this. You're not doing all this. Look, but you're doing this. Like you just kind of have a seat somewhere here or whatever, and you listen. You can still listen with the headphones. You can do more activities. So that's why listening in some ways beats watching it. But nothing more like cooler than actually having a visualization. It's like reading a book and watching a movie. But when you're
My
reading, obviously there's more to the movie. To the movie,
Yeah, my
as opposed to the
advice from
book.
personal experience, I mean, George, you can talk about this too. When we first got started, I think we came in agreement that we wanted to do video podcasting for one reason, because you can always turn that video into audio. You can do both, which is great. I think honestly, if you have a podcast,
True.
you might as well be as well versed as possible. You know what I mean? So you can do everything. The great thing about video podcasting is it always can get translated into audio later. See, if you do an only audio podcast, there might be some people that are visual learners, so they like to watch people talk, which is good. I know a lot of people that watch our podcast, bro. They actually put us on their TV on YouTube, and they watch us through there. So some people like to watch it literally through the TV,
That's
some
what's
through
up.
their phone.
Yeah, exactly. It
Which is
gives you
cool.
more perspective and like hearing is fine, but I mean, if you're talking about our podcast in particular, yeah, we always were. Even though we have the audio version too, and we can listen to us on
Yeah.
Spotify, which I actually done. I've listened to us on the way to a flight to Miami once, and to
Oh yeah,
Florida
we
as
went to
well.
Miami last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I've listened to some of our shit, some of our stuff. But like you said, when you have the visual, you have both. You can turn it just to audio. You don't have to just kind of turn it off. But if you only have the audio and the visual, you're like, okay, I'm missing one. Best of two. So we always want a visual one, but no, you're right. Some podcasts are only audio, but some podcasts have the visual. I'm sorry, have the visual version too. You can watch, but for some reason or the other, they're only like you only get the audio version. But there's if you look it up, if you search it up, you will find the visual. But it's like they put out the episodes like audio, but they also have a visual, like a link or something. You know what I mean? Like there's and some podcasts were mostly audio, then became visual too. I remember
Exactly.
some of Joe Rogan's podcasts, some of his shows used to be audio uh, back in the day. Now I'm not saying they were all audio, like only audio. He might have had the version all the time. Like from for all we know, from the very first episode to the fucking I don't know 20,000th, whatever he is, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
35,000. He has like 35,000 episodes. Anyway, so up to that particular one, he probably always had a video. But like all I'm saying is, that when I first started watching the Joe Rogan podcast, I would watch something on YouTube, but he wasn't actually them. It was just like a blank screen and them talking. He had like a picture, like a cool picture, and it was an hour or something and listen. So I was with them. I'm like, I wonder what it looks like. And then when I started watching, like, oh man, it looks. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I said watching
Yeah.
and listening is kind
Yeah.
of cool. It kind of it's hard to go against watching and listening to it as opposed to just listen to it. But it's got its ups and downs, its
It's
perks.
cool if somebody has a really, so we're doing it virtually, it's a little bit different, but one day we hope to just kind of have our own set. So we have a studio, and the great thing about that is you can kind of see people's setups of how they set their studio up, which I think is visually pretty cool. Everybody has a different setup of how they have their set up on the studio and everything like that, with their lights, their
That's
logos and
true.
stuff in the background, which is cool. But not everybody does in studio stuff. Look at the Kelsey brothers; they do virtual from their own homes like this. But obviously, they're both athletes, so they're on the road all the time. They both play for two different teams.
That's
But
why they
sometimes
do it.
it's feasible. So in the future, you might see us in the studio. But because we're both busy individuals, I doubt you'll see us in the studio every single week. But maybe like 2 weeks out of the four,
That's
whatever
something
we
to
can
figure
do.
out. Yeah, talk it,
Yeah, because
get the
sometimes
deal,
we have
the
different
studio
lives. You
deal.
know what I mean? So it's
Yep,
we try to
facts.
collab where we can, and but me and George obviously we have different lives. So, um, but dude, podcasting's been a beautiful thing. Over 3 years, man.
It
I've met a
has.
lot of people you've met a lot of people I know. We've met people that we didn't know coming into the podcast that we've seen on Facebook or Instagram that were doing good
Yeah, we
things, and we
have
invited them
kind of
on
reached
here.
out to some people.
And
Sometimes it doesn't see podcasting is the source of like the root of what do you call it of like networking these days. I mean,
yeah,
if you network and you have a podcast, it's because you could be like, yo, I got a show. Can you come to my show? And you give it it's an exposure thing, especially if you have an audience, which we do. I mean, we actually have quite a nice audience now because we have a lot of members on our pages. We have members online on YouTube of the community, which have more community sections and possibly make more pages and more like a center people can actually comment and talk and just feel free to kind of engage. Which we do have two pages. I'm sorry, two groups and a page. So we need more like online groups and those type of groups like that. Which, like I said, we already have. But people just encourage people to post more because people can post on our page. And if we like it, well, we have to evaluate. And then straight is that we it's pending. Then we release it. If you want to post a story about music, an old footage, a new story, something about the VMAs and the Grammys, about a movie review, some sports news, a sports episode, another podcast link, another podcast, like a smaller podcast like ours. Like we're considered like a smaller because we're not that big, we're not that known. Like we're not necessarily for the celebrities, so we're a smaller podcast in that sense. But we're definitely growing. If you have another podcast and you think that we like it, you can post it there. But of course, you have to be our friends on Facebook or try to be added on Facebook. You don't have to necessarily be our friend, mine or Steve's friend on Facebook, but you have to like the page and try to be like we can add you on the actual two groups. We have two groups on the page. We have a website and we also have the IG page and a TikTok is what
YouTube. Anybody can discover us, which is great. YouTube, we get people sometimes like we've had comments on like shorts and videos. George, remember the one time somebody was talking to us? They were from like California, so people can find you. That's one thing we're trying to improve right now, SEO, which is search engine optimization, and that's why I was actually saying, we might have to actually get to a point where, we're outsourcing that because as much as we learn what we can, we're not professionals in it. So we'll see, but that might be something to outsource to a professional because SEO is what's going to kind of get us and we are gaining traction. We've had our most traction this year than we've ever had with the podcast. We've had almost double traction over the past 2 years before that. We just really weren't doing a great job at really marketing this, but we've really improved this year. It's been a step, but it definitely can be more and better. So we're working on that. But we appreciate every single one of you guys who watches this podcast because some of you have been here since the very beginning. And even if you haven't, we appreciate that you're watching and listening to us now.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's a blessing to be right here where we're at.
Yo, bro, I'd love to stay a little longer, man.
Yeah, I know you got to go, man.
It's getting real late.
I'm probably going to wrap up too, man. The good thing about this is this is a start. This is a start with an episode. There's a lot of great things that I still want to talk about, but we'll keep this so when me and you are here. I would love to maybe bring Bob in because Bob had Bob's Corner, Carson's
part
Corner
2 for sure.
Early.
Yeah,
we'll get some podcasters in here that were like OG podcasters, started from the beginning, and we'll kind of make that a part 2 with this, and we'll continue there.
No problem. I think it sounds good, bro. I mean, if you hold it down a little, like I held on the floor a little before you got
there.
Yeah. Obviously, some small issues. I mean, it's 33 mark in. If he could go up to a couple of minutes, he'll be fine. I think we covered a nice amount, but definitely do what you got to do, bro. I got to get going, but you know what? We definitely could keep these open, and we could do like evolution of podcasting, like possibly part 2 or part 3, and then talk about podcasting, different type of maybe a different angle, a different type of like topic, but still with podcasting. But for this particular episode and topic, we could do like a part 2 and part 3 if you're with it. Definitely a part 2 because part 1 obviously was a little rough start, and we didn't have the best luck today, if you will.
Yeah, technology.
Luck, but we didn't have technology. Some weird stuff going on. I mean, I was able to start, but we sometimes was lost, and of course I have work.
I was having sound and videos issues on my end, so what else is sometimes things happen, and you just can't really prepare for them. You can do your best, but it is what it is, man. But
I'll let you go, man. Have a good night of work. Be safe.
Yep.
I'll talk to you this weekend, and
be safe, man.
Talk to you later. Yep. All right, guys. Watching. Have a good one. Everybody watching. Have a great night. Be safe. Thank you for watching, Steve. It was a pleasure, bro. I'll talk to you soon, and we'll do another part of this, and keep on rocking, man. I'm out of here, guys. Love, peace, and hair grease. I'm out of here. Peace.
Peace, brother. Be safe.
You too, man.
Yes, sir.
All right, so George is out of here. I don't know if he got a chance because I wasn't in at the beginning to play the intro, so I'm just going to play a part of it, and I'll just continue for the last 5 minutes here.
You know what time it is. Marvin Devine, Huber, Axel, and you know how we do. Yeah, I got the juice. Whip game cool, make them look like cool. Always play cool, that's the biggest rule. Forget what they doing, keep on doing. I've been making loot since like 22. Ask me me how I made it right here in the booth. I'm always pursued cause of what I pursue. That's greatness, yeah, I gotta make it, I got things to lose, boy. When I get in my groove, boy, you can't get in my groove. Me, XL, and Hugo, way too fireball. When this joint drop, better call the troops. And when you hear the drop, better raise the roof. Better raise the roof. You already know what happens when we link up. Let's go. Yeah, I got the juice. Yeah, I got the juice. Win game cool, make them look like ooh. Always play it cool, that's the biggest rule. Forget what they doing, keep on doing.
All right, guys. Sorry, I just wanted to play that because I'm not quite sure if that was able to get played at the beginning. It might have. It might have. So George is gone now for the evening, and yeah, all we were basically talking about was how podcasts have kind of come along. They kind of started as talk radio kind of shows, and it kind of was with the emergence of the iPod in the early 2000s, and it's really expanded to kind of video content. Like I said, Joe Rogan was a pioneer with podcasting, and he's one of the most consistent podcasters. We really would love to bring OG podcasters on here. Bob Carson is one that comes to my mind. He's been on here before, and shout out Bob if you are, in fact, watching. Bob ran a podcast called Carson's Corners, among something else as well, I believe. But yeah, we'd love to be able to get other people on here to kind of talk about this. All I got to say is if you're thinking about starting a podcast, you don't need to be the most prepared for it. Just prepare the basics and the essentials. Podcasts are never going to be perfect when you first start them. Just start it and get started and just try to improve every single week is my motto. There's going to be weeks where you're not going to have the energy to maybe do it, but you just got to try to stay as consistent as you can. Even on the weeks that we don't do it, we try to do something productive like a marketing meeting. And the best episodes I think we do have are the guest ones when we bring on guests. And I know I've been saying for like 2 weeks now, so I don't want you guys to kind of think that I'm BSing or bullshitting you. We were supposed to have guests on the past 2 weeks, but there has been issues with scheduling conflicts. So the guests that we were supposed to have on for the past 2 weeks, they have told us apparently it wasn't really locked in last time when George was talking to them, but this time apparently it is for next week. However, even if that guest doesn't come, we will shift one of our guests that are scheduled after that. So we have a lot of great things coming on for November, December. And I do tell you, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, give it a shot. I think there's a lot of good benefits that come from it, even if you're not generating money up front. Obviously, if everybody's time's different. George and I are incredibly busy people, but we still make time for this. And we've grown this year more than we have in past years. Our growth still isn't the best that we would love to see. We want to see a lot more than what we're actually seeing, but it is progress. But I'm someone personally who does not rest on my progress. I'm always someone that wants to be better and strives for more. But hey, we still sometimes have to take a look at the outside picture and just understand where we're at. But we honestly couldn't do this without any of you. So everybody that's watching, anybody that's, telling other people about our podcast, anybody that's contributing, I just want to say that I really appreciate you. And I know that's a cliche thing to say, but of course you're going to say that to people to watch your podcast, but it genuinely means the world to us. We don't do this without you. You know what I mean? Like, we don't sit here and talk on the mic every single week just to talk to ourselves. We do it because you guys listen in and tune in. So genuinely appreciate that. But podcasting has come a long way. And even though it's a lot out there, it's very saturated, the potential of different things you can do with podcasts is just, it still hasn't barely tapped the surface. There's a lot of things that I think you're going to see. You're going to see different styles of podcasts coming forward. The market in terms of topics is very saturated. I won't lie on that. You have to do unique things to make your podcast stand out among others. But there's still a lot to do out there, there's still a lot that hasn't even been tapped. So I will say it takes a lot of consistency and a lot of uniqueness to really market your podcast and make it stand out. If you're thinking about doing it, do it. Sometimes people just need to hear that. Somebody recently came to me and actually asked me advice on starting a podcast that they never actually wound up starting. I'm not sure what the reason was behind it, but I told them I'm here if they have questions. You know what I mean? Because it was not easy for us starting. We had a lot of technical glitches, technical issues. And as you see, 3 years in, sometimes you just can't avoid certain things. I had technical issues today for like the first time in a while. I'm usually always very much set up, and I was set up today, and everything was working until about 5 minutes before I went live. And things do happen. But the fact of the matter is you got to stay consistent no matter what those obstacles are and just keep plugging. But we will have a part 2 on this because it hasn't been super long. We did start late, so a lot of our audience that was probably scheduled to watch at the time we started had to maybe drop off. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend this weekend. We'll be back next week, 149. At the very end of the year, we're going to be at the 3-year mark with episode 156, 52 weeks in a year times 3. It'll be exactly 3 years, and that will be a big celebration. It's going to be at the end of December. That being said, if you're in the Philadelphia area and you're watching this and you're an Eagles fan, or maybe you're a Cowboys fan, this is Dallas week. So, I'm repping the Birds. Go Birds. EAGLES Eagles. Let's go. And yeah, fuck Dallas. Guys, with that being said, I am going to wrap up here. I hope you guys have a great weekend, guys and ladies out there. We will be back, episode 149. The scheduled guest for next week is an old friend of the podcast. I think you guys have probably heard of him. You'll see the promo when it comes out. I'll keep that one quiet for now, but you'll see it when it comes out. That being said, guys, have a great weekend. See, the comment came in here. Somebody's go Birds. Let's go. And I do want to give you a shout out, whoever you are. So before I pop off, I will always address the names on here because even though Facebook doesn't want to tell me who it is, I'm always going to address. Let's see. I'll go through the YouTube chat to see it. I always want to give you guys credit, no matter who you are. Let's see. I'm actually having issues seeing the live stream at the moment. So whoever you are, shout your name down below, and I will give you credit. I went on Facebook, and for some reason, it's not showing the live. But obviously, it's up because people are commenting in. Guys, have a great weekend. Go Birds! I love it. And yeah, we will be back next week for episode 149. Rob, my guy, let's go, bro. Appreciate you tuning in, man. Man, you know what it is, man. Bird Gang all day. Let's get this victory on Sunday. Let's go into the bye 8-1, sitting on top of the division, sitting nice and pretty, especially with the Niners losing 3 straight games. Let's go. This could be a beautiful thing, man. It would be very disappointing if they lose, man, but I am very confident that they're going to win this one. So E-Money Bentley comments in, Cowgirls 10, Eagles 45. I would absolutely love that. I love that enthusiasm. I would love that. I feel like this one's going to be a little bit closer than that, but I do think the Eagles win by 10 at least, but I would love that. Dallas would have literally no bragging rights the rest of the year if that happens. If that happens, we smack them by 35 on Sunday. You got all the bragging rights there if they win by 35. I'll tell you what, I don't see that, but if that happens, Dallas has no bragging rights all year. And yeah, that's definitely true, you Cowboys fans out there. So everybody's watching is a Cowboys fan. With that being said, guys, have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you back for episode 149 next week. And go Birds. I genuinely appreciate all of you who have commented in or just streamed. Have a good night.